Hello everyone and welcome back to episode 123. Thank you so much for joining me today. Some of you may have noticed, or maybe not. Maybe that's just my ego thinking that you might have noticed. But you might have noticed that I have been a little bit absent during the first couple of weeks of January, both on the podcast and also on my Empower State Instagram and Facebook page. So apologies if you have missed me. I'm back. I've just been taking a little bit of time to focus on a couple of other ventures that I'm going to be taking on in 2025. So I will just spend the first few minutes of this podcast giving you a little update about what's been going on behind the scenes in my life. So if you don't want to hear that, fast forward me now. But for those of you that are staying, thank you very much. So the first one is something that I am starting, which is called the Creator Club, and that is going to be launching soon, not very soon, but soon. And I won't go into detail about that today because I'm going to tell you a bit more about that closer to the time. But in a nutshell, I am launching an online manifestation and mindset club, which is going to be for kids aged 7 to 13, but there's going to be sort of 2 tiers for them. So there'll be an area for the younger ones and an area for the older ones and some bits that will cross over. So I am currently planning and recording the content of that. If that is something that you are interested in and you have children and you would like to get them into manifestation and mindset work, come and follow me on Instagram. The handle for that one is Creator Club for Kids, all letters, not the number 4. Creator Club for Kids. And I'll be posting more information on that nearer to the time that I launch it. Secondly, my family has a business that sells steering wheel locks. It's called Resolute, the product, Armour Plate Resolute. And we've had this business for a long time. And since I left my own job, I spent a lot more time there and I've become much more invested in that business and how it works and what's going on in there. So the business has evolved from an old product that we used to sell to a completely new product, which is our new one, the Resolute. And so we're restructuring it to focus on this new product. So that means that I'm going to be even more involved in that in the coming year, which is a very exciting, big change for me. So I'm going to be involved in that. And finally, as some of you will have seen already, maybe you've rolled your eyes at me. I don't know. I'm assuming some of you have because I would have done a year ago. I have been adding another string to my bow, a bow which is increasingly resembling a harp at this point, and that is digital marketing. So the reason that I have decided to seemingly out of nowhere start doing digital marketing is not quite that. It's not quite like that. So last year, when I left my job as a school teacher in March, some of you might remember that I went through a little period of time for a few months where I was feeling very lost. And that was because I didn't really understand any of the practical side of running an online business and making it successful, which is absolutely necessary if you're going to do that. I felt very out of my depth. I felt overwhelmed. I felt confused, totally confused about what I was supposed to be doing day to day. Like, what was my new role? What was I supposed to be doing week to week in my business? And so after feeling like this for a while, I was speaking to a good friend of mine about this, and she works for herself. She has done for a long time. And she recommended a course to me, which was called UBC. It's called Ultimate Branding Course. And that really very quickly changed the game for me. So by investing in that course, I learned all of the skills that I needed to match the new identity that I had stepped into, which was a business owner, somebody who has their own business. And the whole process from that point became much more enjoyable and also much more profitable. Now, I am not the kind of person who will sell any old shit to make money. I won't do that. I never have and I never will. However, I got so much value from the content of this course, and I'm still getting it now. I'm constantly going into it practically daily to learn new things, and they keep adding more stuff to it. And I attribute so much of the growth of my business over the past 6 months to the content in that course that I now feel very, very comfortable recommending it to other people who are in a similar position to me, maybe wanting to move out of the job and into a business, because it helped me so much. So now that I have used the content of that course to build up Empower State, and that's kind of running smoothly, the membership's running smoothly, that's growing, other little bits and pieces are growing, I have a bit more time now, so I've decided to start doing this separate sort of stream of business alongside what I already do, which is in digital marketing. Something that is very, very important to me is my integrity. So that is why I am selling this particular course and not all of the others. There are other courses that do a similar thing, and I believe that they're all amazing, but I haven't used them personally myself, so I'm never going to recommend something that I haven't used myself. So please rest assured that even though you might see the odd post about digital marketing on my Empower State podcast page, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not changing what I do. My passion and my purpose is always, always, always going to be teaching law of assumption. But because I now attract a lot of clients and people who are in the membership who want to leave their job and follow their own purpose in areas that could be completely different to mine, this course helped me so much to do that smoothly that I wish I had bought it sooner. And it helped me to create my own products in my own niche of manifestation. So because I know that this is something that has helped me, I also feel like it's really going to help them too, if they feel drawn to it. So if you are a person who is wanting to start a business, or even somebody who just wants to earn more money on the side and has no intention of ever leaving a job, come and follow me on my TikTok and Instagram. My TikTok is very new and I'm trying to grow the numbers on it so that I can go live on it. So if you could follow me on there, that'd be great. But I'm also on Instagram, and the handle is @YouCreateBabe. And if not, that's absolutely fine. No problem at all. But I promise you this right now, I am never going anywhere outside of manifestation. I'm not going to just suddenly pack that in and go over to digital marketing. And secondly, I will never, ever, ever be trying to persuade you or pressure you into buying anything from me, the membership, the course, anything. I just want to share on that separate page how that course and digital marketing in general has helped me, because I used to think it was total bullshit. I didn't understand it at all and I did not see the value in it. So now that I have learned that, I want to share it with others who are interested in that. But believe me when I say I won't even let you buy it, never mind push you to buy it, if I don't think it would really, really help you. Integrity over sales, always. That's very important to me. Right, so thank you for coming to my TED Talk. That's where I've been for the last 3 weeks. I'm just thinking now, quite a few of you have already followed me on that page, and I know that maybe there'll be some people out there who want to know more, but they're like thinking, oh my God, I don't want to message her because she might say, you have to buy it, which I never would, obviously. But I think I might do sort of an episode about digital marketing and about the course, but I'm not going to count it as an episode, if that makes sense. So if you see another episode comes up in the middle of the week this week, like in between this one and the next proper one, that is just for the people who are interested in learning more about that. You do not need to listen to it. There will be no obligation for you to join us on that journey. So anyway, let's get started with today's episode. So I'm going to start off, we're 9 minutes in. I'm going to start off with a little story for you. Now, it's not a very nice story, but it's an important story. So if you are sitting comfortably, boys and girls, then I shall begin. It's a while since I've told a story. Right, so In the 1970s, this is a true story, by the way, there was a man called Jim Jones, and he was the founder of something called the People's Temple, which was a religious movement that he marketed. He'd have been more successful marketing it with the UBC, I'm just saying. But anyway, he marketed it as this like utopian community. And within that community, he sold it as promoting racial equality, social justice, and communal living. Those were like the three things that he pushed that on. So it was called People's Temple, and he was called Jim Jones. So at the beginning, the group started to gain a bit of a following of people seeking like a sense of belonging. They wanted somewhere to go and feel like they were a part of something. And this man, Jim Jones, was very charismatic, and he made all these promises to these people of having a better future, and it made him very magnetic. Some might say he had a great self-concept. Now, over time, his behaviour in this group, in the People's Temple, became a little bit dodgy. He started getting a little bit dictatorial almost. And some people outside of the group accused him of doing things that were not very nice. Fraud, abuse, manipulation, doing all of this bad shit, now that he'd sort of gained a bit of control over these people. So from the outside, Jonestown was marketed as this like paradise, this utopia. People literally really changed their lives, like left the families behind, left all of the way of living to go and join this like commune. And it was not really very nice in there, but this man, Jim Jones, controlled all the information that they got access to. He did the typical things of somebody who is a cult leader. So these people had unknowingly become part of a cult, basically. And then a few years later, in 1978, there was a congressman called Leo Ryan. Obviously, I've got all of this information off the internet and put it together for you in a beautiful little story about homicide. So this man, Leo Ryan, who was a congressman, he visited Jonestown, this People's Temple, to investigate all of these claims that this man, Jim Jones, was abusive. And obviously, Jim Jones did not like that. He was very resistant to somebody coming in and investigating what he was up to. So, to cut a long story short, this man was killed. Leo Ryan, he was killed. Right? So, because of that, Jim Jones decided that he was basically going to take out the whole community, including, I think maybe he did. I've not checked that. Hang on, let me fact check that. Let me see if he did. Yes, including himself. However, he didn't do it in the same way, right? So because he knew that he was going to get found out for killing Leo Ryan and that it was all going to fall apart and he was going to lose control, basically, he decided that everybody in the People's Temple was going to take part in a group suicide, or it was called a revolutionary suicide. So under his direction, all of the members, over 900 people, drank a glass of Kool-Aid, which is like Vimto. And in that Kool-Aid, it was laced with cyanide, which is obviously a poison. So all of these people drank the same drink, including parents who give this drink to their children first and then drank it themselves. So many of the people in this group drank this glass of cyanide. No, not cyanide. Cyanide. It sounds like Lucozade. Cyanide. No, they drank this glass of Kool-Aid that was laced with cyanide, right? And lots of them drank it willingly, knowing what was going to happen, but believing in everything that this cult leader had brainwashed them to believe, but just did it anyway. And the other people were coerced into drinking the Kool-Aid, which I know sounds bizarre, out of fear, because you think, well, what's more scary than certain death from drinking poisoned Kool-Aid? But they did it because they were fearful. Now, we can relate this story back to our own lives. So those 900 people died in a mass suicide from drinking the Kool-Aid, and that became a term then for... Don't drink the Kool-Aid became a term for not blindly doing things under other people's instruction or because everybody else is doing it. Because although the Kool-Aid looks fine, it smells nice, it looks nice, it's a bright colour, it looks sweet and attractive, it's very unsafe to do that, even though we think it's the safer thing to do. So I'm going to talk about how that relates to our own lives. And I'm going to give you some examples of how you might be drinking the Kool-Aid so that you can become aware of it and you can choose to stop doing that. Now, the first one, I'm going to give you a couple of real life examples that no matter where you are in the world or what your beliefs are on around it, you're going to be able to relate to this one, of how we actually did drink the Kool-Aid in many ways, and how this power of societal norms and going with the masses caused us to lose our ability to think critically and make us fall in line with alarming speed. And I know at this point I sound like a conspiracy theorist. So the ones that I'm going to give you, these first couple of examples, are to do with COVID. Now, I'm not going to go into my beliefs around COVID because everybody has a different belief about that. But just listen for a second about this. Right, so during COVID, I was a primary school teacher. I had a very small classroom at the time. And when the schools reopened, I was in this small classroom with 31 children who were in my class, right? So eventually there came a point where, as the teacher, I was no longer required to wear a mask in the classroom. Best day of my fucking life because I hated wearing it. But I was not required to wear a mask in the classroom with my own kids. And this is not any criticism of my school, by the way, because these were the government guidelines. The government, the people who were making the rules. So there were 32 of us all together in this small box all throughout the day. Day in, day out, we were all together. And I had to take the children out at home time onto our very big playground and send them one at a time about 100 foot across the playground to the parents who I could see were stood at the gate waiting to collect them. But here is the part that I want you to think about in relation to drinking the Kool-Aid and losing our ability to think critically. When I left the small classroom to go out onto the completely empty playground in the fresh air with the children I've just spent all day in a small box with, when I went out onto this playground where I was 100 feet away from anyone, then I was required by the government to wear a mask. Riddle me that. What are we doing there? Like, what's going on there? We're following blindly these guidelines from the government. Now, you might not have been a teacher, so you'll have a different example, but we'll all be able to think of these sort of examples of where we think, actually, what the fuck were we doing here? So another example of this is one day I went to Tesco, and it was when it had all that one-way system. And I walked down an empty aisle, right? And I got to the end of the aisle and I realised as I reached the end of the aisle that I'd missed an item that I needed. Let's say it was a packet of sausages. I think I was a vegan then, so it would probably have been the Richmond ones. So I just turned back around to get the sausages that were literally less than 5 feet away from my hand in a completely empty aisle, right? And I was almost, no word of a lie, rugby tackled by a member of staff who insisted that I must walk back around the aisle and come back up it the right way because it was a one-way system. And this is not a criticism of the member of staff or even of Tesco. I'm just pointing out how we go along with things. So I pointed out to her that there were 8 people in the aisle that she wanted me to go down, and none in the aisle that I wanted to just grab the sausages from that were so close that if I'd have been a foot taller, I could have literally reached them. And she insisted, absolutely insisted, that I follow these guidelines, and she was getting quite on her high horse about it. And she wanted me to weave through these 8 people in order to loop around and reach the sausages which were in an empty aisle. And these examples are not about COVID specifically. There's millions of them about COVID. But this is the problem with drinking the Kool-Aid, is that it has you doing things that clearly make no fucking sense at all, because that's what everyone's doing. That's the rules. That's what the masses are doing. And very often the things that are actually that we're being asked to do or being trained to do by our society are detrimental, and in some case they are dangerous. So I want to give you another example of drinking the Kool-Aid that is very common. And this is nothing to do with COVID, but this is related to the idea of having a midlife crisis. So it might be that you've already experienced this. Maybe your partner's experienced this. Maybe you're in the thick of it. Maybe you're approaching the age where this might happen to you. Or maybe you've got plenty of time to think carefully about this, right? The average age for a midlife crisis, statistically, to happen to men is between 40 and 50, and for women it's between 40 and 45. So around about that age, typically a lot of women and men have kids who are growing up and who no longer need so much of their energy and their attention. And so they start often to feel like they have lost their own identity, because for all this time, they've been wrapped up in being a busy mum or a busy dad. And for people who've not got kids, often they've been wrapped up in the work and the job. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, and this is a very common phenomenon, you know what I mean? It's very, very common that suddenly people around that age start doing seemingly bizarre shit, like shagging the secretary, running away with a Turkish bartender that they met on a family holiday, buying an outrageous sports car or a motorbike on finance that they can't really afford, maybe having 24-inch blonde extensions and a boob job, going out on benders for days on end like they did in the 20s, booking a trip to Thailand to stroke a tiger and find themselves, because they are desperate to find the version of them that existed before they started doing all of this shit that they didn't really want to do because of the societal norms and pressures. And there's nothing wrong with having 24-inch blonde extensions when you're 50. Absolutely nothing wrong. There is nothing wrong with running off with a Turkish bartender, as long as, you know, that's what you really want to do. But often it's not what we want to do. It's just that we suddenly get to this boiling point where we feel like we need some kind of absolute drastic change. And that happens all at once, and it feels like a crisis, because what's actually happening is you are waking up one day and realising that you have been spending the majority of your adult life following a set of made-up rules that have been put upon you by society. So you have created this life that looks great on the outside, and you're doing a fantastic job of keeping up with the Joneses. You're earning the income that you're expected to earn at that age. You've got a wife and a kid, or a husband and a kid, or a couple of kids. You've got a lovely house with the, you know, the white picket fence life. But on the inside, you are crippled by the weight of all the responsibility of keeping that shit up. And the joy in your life is practically non-existent. And you are desperately doing all of these things that are seemingly very out of character and out of the blue and impulsive, because you're trying to find that spark in anything that you can, because it's suddenly dawned on you what's going on. So maybe you're listening and you got married to somebody in your 20s that you didn't really like that much then, but it was fine and you got on, so you went ahead with it. And then everybody kept asking you, when you're having a kid, when you're going to have a kid, because you're of that age. And so you had a kid because that's what you expected to do. And then you stayed together because you think, oh, well, that's what's best for the kids. And then you get a better paying 9 to 5 job that locks you in even further so that you can get a bigger mortgage and a bigger house and impress people that you don't really like anyway. And maybe you really wanted to travel all over the world, photographing wild animals and living in a camper van with that boy that your parents didn't approve of. But because that wasn't realistic and people had expectations and no one else was doing it, you settled down and got a job selling photocopiers because it paid a decent wage to your family and it kept you going, and just cried in your car on the way home. And now you've got a pension that you can withdraw if you're 70 and you're not already dead from the stress. So that sounded very Debbie Downer, didn't it? But I'd be shagging my secretary too, babe. Like, you know, it's not how we are supposed to be living our lives. It's how we think we're supposed to be living our lives. And that's not to say that every person who is married or works in a job feels like that. Not at all. I know people who've been married since they were 20 and are so in love and so happy. I know people who have had children and quit the career and just raised the children and they are so happy. I know people who work in a job and they never have that feeling where they think, oh my God, this job is sucking the life out of me. This does not apply to just because you might have one of those little situations that I mentioned before. It applies to you if you know that thing that you are going along with is slowly killing you from the inside out. There is nothing more terrifying to me than when I think about how I almost did all of this myself. I almost stayed in a job and worked my way up the ladder that made me feel physically ill because it was so unaligned for me personally. I almost married a man that deep down, if I'm completely honest, I knew was not the right match for me. But it was very comfortable and we got on very well and I loved him and I knew it wasn't right, but I almost got married to that person. Thank fuck I didn't. We would then, without a doubt, have had a child together that neither of us wanted. And we had this conversation. We didn't want the child. We did not want a child, but we would have had one because that's what was expected. I was constantly pushing him to earn more money so that we could have an extension on our house to fill the fucking void of what was clearly missing in my life. And as much as it was traumatic, genuinely, this is not a dig, in my mind, I thank my ex every single day for releasing me from drinking the Kool-Aid. I actually listened to a song this week that perfectly describes this. Please go and listen to it after this episode. It's called Isn't It Scary by Eva Rose. And I'll try and link it in the show notes actually. And it is the epitome of exactly what I'm talking about today. It's not a dig at my ex. I'm just going to make that clear. I genuinely thank him every single day for releasing me from that life because I probably wouldn't have done it myself. It was too scary. Now, before you all leave your husbands and they all sue me, I do just want to give you a bit of a reflection practice to put this into perspective for your own life. Because for many people, like I said before, this is nothing to do with the person that they're with. It's nothing to do with the job that they're in. It's to do with other areas of their life. So I want you to think about which area of your life are you drinking the Kool-Aid? You'll be doing it somewhere, I can almost guarantee it. And it's that bit of your life that you know there is something off, there's something missing, there's something where you are settling because you expected to do that. So is it that you actually really want to pursue your health goals and that you feel shit every time you go out on a weekend and spend all your money and you've got a hangover and you feel really shit, but the pressure of the friends that you are, hanging around with, they're telling you, like, have a drink, and actually you want to stop drinking? Is that you? Are you going along with it because that's what everybody else is doing when really you know that that's not right for you? Do you have a dream career that you would love to pursue? And if so, Are you pursuing it, or are you like the majority of people? Are you going to a job that makes you feel like swerving into the central reservation every fucking day at the very thought of spending another 7 hours in there because you get the perceived safety of this paycheck to cover the bills at the end of the month? There's no risk. Do you love the person that you are with, that you're spending your life with right now? Or are you with them because you are afraid to be on your own and you're actually fucking miserable? You're quietly fantasizing about all of the creative ways that you could murder them. If so, I hear on the grapevine that cyanide works a fucking treat. Do you have a desire to create more wealth so that you can be free, so that you can have a free life, because wealth creates freedom? That's why we all want it. So that you can go on holidays, so that you can spend time with your children, etc., etc. But you are continuing to spend all the money you have on shit that you don't need to feel temporarily better instead of investing it. Are you doing that? Most of us are doing it in some way. Do you feel dissatisfied about the state of your health? Like, are you waking up and thinking, oh, I really need to do something about my health, but you're continuing to eat the same shit and not move like you have done for years and years, eating things that don't fuel you because it's more comfortable to stay the same? I'm talking to myself though. That is the area that I am still drinking the Kool-Aid in, and I need to prioritise that. Do you hang around with a circle of friends who spend all of the time gossiping and dragging other people down, and who then lead you to do the same because you want to appear and feel popular and feel like you've got some people that you fit in with because you don't want to be on your own again? Do you really want to learn a hobby? This is a really common one. You've got something that you think, oh, that would bring me so much joy. I would love to do that. I've always wanted to do that. But then you don't make time for it. You're spending all your weekend being a busy fool because it's normal to be too busy, because that's how everybody lives. And you're nothing special. So you feel like, well, I have to do that as well. I have to spend the weekend walking around B&Q and fucking being miserable and hating every second of it, so I can tell all my colleagues at work that that's what I've done, instead of prioritising things that bring me joy. Ask yourself, is the person that I admire, the person whose life you look at and think, I want that, I want that? And there might be multiple people, because there might be different people for different areas of your life who are living in your desired reality in that area. Are they drinking the same Kool-Aid that you are? Or are they going against those norms in that area of life that you might be blindly going along with because there's perceived safety in numbers? What are they doing instead? And whatever the answer is to that question, go and do that. The purpose of this episode is to save you from spending a single day more of your life living under these false ideas of safety. It's not safety, it's a fucking trap. It is a trap. Societal norms are a trap. This is your life. You are the god of your reality. You think that you've got time and you think, I'll do that one day, I'll do that one day, I'll do that one day. You won't, because you're in the trap. The time is right now. Let me tell you that the circumstances will never, ever be right for you because you're thinking from an identity that's created those circumstances. You've got to change that. You've got to trust your intuition and make that leap of faith in whatever it is that you don't want to live like this anymore. But the rewards for doing that are going to be absolutely immense. There is no amount of money or safety, fake safety, that you could offer me to go back to my old Kool-Aid life of being in a relationship that didn't really fulfill me, knowing something that was wrong, working in a job for a safe paycheck every month to pay the bills and to buy more shit to fill the void of my life, hanging around with certain friends that I really didn't vibe with because I wanted to fit into a group. No. There is no amount of money that you could offer me to go back to that life. And I know that this sounds dramatic, but I was slowly dying on the inside, and I would do all of the shit that's happened in the past few years again to have the peace and the freedom that I have got now, and I'm only just getting started. Whose permission are you waiting for to create a life that you don't need to escape from every weekend? Your life has started. You're right in the middle of it. There is no tomorrow. It is all right now. So really think about what I've said today. Play this episode again, because this is a really important message that I want to drive home to you. There is not safety in numbers. Don't be fooled into thinking that. So that is what I have for you this week. Please come and join me on all of the platforms at Empower State and at You Create Babe. Tag me in your stories so that I can reach more people. Share this episode with somebody who you think needs to hear it. And if you have taken any value from today, I would be eternally grateful for an Apple review. I read every single one of them, and they help me more than I can explain to you to grow the podcast. So I will be back next week, but for now, I'm going to leave you with this thought, and I say this with love, but please wake the fuck up and stop drinking the Kool-Aid, babe. It is poisoning you. I will speak to you soon. Have an amazing week. I'll see you later.